All right. All right, well, this is the Design Review Board regular meeting, Monday, October 5th, 2015, being held in Simsbury Public Library Program Room, 5:30 p.m. Call to order, so Ron Perry is absent, but everyone else is here. We have a quorum, so we don't need to appoint any alternates tonight. So we'll go right into discussion and possible action items. Number one, application number 15-30 of Gerard Brothers Corporation, owner, Sunlight Construction, Inc., applicant for a site plan approval on the property located at 42 and 54 Hoskins Road, Assessor's Map H05, Block 404, Lot 005, Zone I-1. Received 9/21/15. Decision must be rendered by 11/25/15. That would be you.
Is this working?
Yes.
So what you want? Okay. Hi, I'm Bill Ferrigno from Sunlight Construction. And I just want to point out that we really would like to, with your permission, talk about the first two applications because it's the properties that are being merged together. So it's really, those two are really on one property, or I'm sorry, on two pieces of land that are being merged together.
Absolutely.
So just for the record, I'd like to mention that. That's what we did last time.
Okay.
We're here after speaking to your last meeting, where we discussed our development and our architecture, and there was a few questions came out of that, and we're back tonight, hopefully, to answer those questions for you and clarify anything that that needs to be clarified. So just as a recap, our proposal for development is will fall under your workforce housing regulations, which we'll talk to the zoning folks about later this evening. And so part of that is where we introduce housing units that meet a certain criteria for affordability. And we intend to mix in those units with conventional market price units as well, so that the design characteristics of the whole property should be uniform. So yes, there'll be different houses. There'll be different styles and floor plans and square footages and so forth. But the idea is to make indistinguishable a so-called modestly priced unit from one that maybe is market rate. House prices in this development will range from, I think under the current, I get this wrong all the time, Mike, I think it's like $279 or $280. This is really a function of what the median income is for Simsbury on an annual basis, and we take 80% of that. There's a formula for that, but at today's price is $280. I think that our higher end might be maybe $450, $475, something like that. That's kind of the price range that we have in mind. At the last meeting, there were questions about colors and textures. And I wrongly did not bring samples with me tonight. I have some vinyl samples and we have some roofing samples. Also, there was a request on the multifamily units that we plan to build to do a little bit of redesign in those. And Rich Crane from Kepler Associates is involved in this property, and he's here tonight to talk about the architectural design. So I'll put him on. Rich?
Thank you, Bill. Just to recap what we talked about at the last meeting, just in general, we're going to have a mix of housing units. There'll be single-family, multifamily, and what we call the patio units. The sizes of the square footages range anywhere from 1,400 to approximately 3,000 square feet for the individual houses, and then we have multifamily units that'll be around 1,200 feet each. Each will have 2 bedrooms and 2 baths. There's a mixture of styles. As you can see, there's cape units and there's 2-story units. All of them have porches or recessed entries, covered entries. All the windows are vertically proportioned. Some of the homes, one of the comments from the last meeting is some side entry garages. We've redesigned some units so that we can have side entry garages where the lots allow. Some of them are a little bit tight, so they'll be strategically placed. And then obviously we'll have vinyl siding, as Bill talked about, and the colored samples.
I don't know how you want us to display it. Do you want us just to put it across the chairs, or is this better to you?
Do you guys want to see any?
We have roofing inside.
Okay, Bill, I'm going to take your chair here. Thanks. So the color palettes will range basically from a basic white to some grays and beiges. And then the roofing colors, I know was a question. So we want to mix in weathered wood and charcoal colored sort of strategically throughout also. So what we call our patio units are single-family units that are joined at the garage. They're about 5 feet apart, and they're joined by a trellis. It's the same sort of thing that's done in the Summerfield neighborhood in the north end of town. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. Multi-family units. Let me get this on here. One of the comments from the last meeting, you had asked us to sort of take a look at switching the ridge lines up a little bit. So we've lowered this ridge line on the main roof down about 4 feet. One thing to look at, though, realistically, you'd never see it in a line because there's about an 18-foot difference between this face of the gable and the actual line of the ridge. And the way we've done this is we've kept the pitch in the front the same, so it's a uniform pitch across, but in the back we lowered it down, but you won't really see it. I think that's sort of the point.
Yeah. Let me just add to that. So on the multifamily, I wanted to point out too that I think, do all of these units have porches? I think they all have porches. What we're trying to do is get some depth to this building. It's not a particularly large building. It's multifamily. There are 8 units in this building, 4 on the second floor, 4 on the first floor. We've made a point of having first floor being totally accessible and egressable. But at the same time, we wanted to make sure we weren't providing or presenting just a flat front on these buildings. And I think you guys have done a pretty good job with that. So I think from the last meeting, I think we talked about, it didn't seem like you liked the idea of single roof color, so we were introducing a second roof color. And you wanted to see the textures on the colors on the siding. And I'm not sure what else there was, Mike. So, happy to answer any questions.
Question on the roof. Is that just a rendering, or is that a different color?
This is actually supposed to be the weathered wood color.
Say again?
The weathered wood color you see there?
Well, all right. In looking at a number of sites similar to yours, there's a significant number of light colors in the roof. You've got a significant number of structures. So, in looking at the lighter colors, maybe you ought to consider it. The lighter colors, in certain cases, would make a structure like this stand out, which you may not want. But again, some of the other structures, given the whole area that structure is in, lighter colors might be appropriate. Suggestion. The ridge line, as far as I'm concerned, now looks very good.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
So the colors there are the brown roof and the very light siding?
Well, we actually have contrasting colors. It's hard to pick up, I know, because we're just drawing it in, but we have a different color on the gable, a little bit lighter than the body color, just to get a little bit of contrast. It's not just a material, so it's not just a textural difference, but a subtle color difference also.
Are the gables shakes?
They are. They're cedar impressions, which
Right.
is the vinyl equivalent.
Right.
So I think we should point that out. I'm not sure that got through last time, that actually these materials and textures are different than the ones down below, just again, to give it just a little bit of contrast.
I assume that all the trim work, the fascias, are these hollow vinyl sheets, right?
They will be a mix of vinyl and a product called AZAC, or AZAC equivalent.
Okay. I was wondering if the budget allows for AZAC, or, like
Or
the
some
solid-
equivalent to that.
The solid trim
Yeah.
in that composite material, if it's AZAC or something, different manufacturer, but to get them solid.
So what you can expect is around the window trims, it probably would be more of the kind of vinyl material, but around the entries and whatnot, where
Yes.
we really can't use that material anyway. And there's, I mean, we would have an interest in some kind of a long-term, from a maintenance point of view, as well as architecturally. So, AZEK is just one brand. I think I
Yes.
know what you mean in
Yeah.
terms of the idea. It's a solid board.
Yeah.
Right.
I know last meeting I had made an issue about the ridge line, so I'm glad to see you addressed that, and also about roof color. I'm glad to see you address that as well. Just a couple of clarification questions on this building. On the gable ends, are those separating the shakes and the clapboard, is that a full eyebrow roof, or is,
So, right here?
yeah, is that an eyebrow, or is that just
Just
a trim?
No, it's
trim?
the fascia board brought
Just a
across
fascia board.
with so it'll be extended out the
So you
same
got
depth.
like a projection there.
Correct.
There will be a projection.
Yes.
Is that what you mean by an eyebrow?
Yeah.
Okay,
We
yeah.
Have a little bit of roof shimmer.
Correct.
Yeah, no, they'll
Well,
actually be-
flashing, but yeah.
Or flashing, okay. All right, so that's a good way of also breaking up and these are window mantles, looks, I mean, at least based on the drawings, it look like your window trims are fairly hefty.
Correct.
And what is that going on in the gables of the, yes,
Entries, it's basically a layer of trim laid on top of flat panel. So it'll make a recessed panel look, but in this configuration, but it'll be back at the plane of the gable, not out at the plane of the fascia and the boards coming across.
I like those brackets at the balconies. I hope you will do.
Oh, these?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So hopefully they will stay until the end, not just in the rendering.
Well, we'll build them that way. Whether the people who live there do it, no, they'll be built that way.
Yeah, yeah, no, they give some character.
No, there's some
yeah.
real character to that.
Well, and they give scale to the projection also, to the porches.
Do you have any renderings of the ends?
You know, I don't have a rendering of it, and I didn't bring
No, we don't have.
the elevation with
And
me.
how many of these units are there?
So
Three
Three
buildings.
buildings, each building has 8 multifamily
Okay.
units. So total of 24 for the property.
And all the buildings are the same?
They are.
Correct.
Well, my question then would be, are the ends basically similar to the front facade
Yes,
in terms of design?
correct, yes.
Okay.
and the gables of the porches on the second story, same as the.
They're-
right,
Yeah, they're drawn to have the same elements
that
on it.
same Pattern.
Correct.
So how are you deciding which building gets which roof color?
Well, my own opinion is that these 3 buildings should have the same color siding and the same color roof on it. That's my opinion. You guys are here to tell us if you agree with that or not. And throughout the development of the individual houses, I think there will be a mixture of roof lines. But I mean, when you have buildings that are 40 to 50 feet apart and you have a theme, I think it's more appropriate to have them in the same color.
I would agree with you.
Okay?
And that gets the brown one.
This would be the weathered wood, right? What you're calling brown. It has browns and other elements in it, right? Yeah. It's kind of a natural woodsy color.
The houses around the rest of the property would kind of alternate between those two?
Yes, exactly. I mean, for illustrative purposes, these are all shown with charcoal roofs, but in actuality, we would mix that up. You know, to a certain extent, you know, even though these are kind of standard houses, we do allow our clients to get involved in the design color process. So, I mean, it's entirely likely that a customer would say, I prefer a weathered wood with this combination of siding, and we would allow that.
And if the customer preferred a red roof, that would be,
We would send them back to see you, and you would say no. And then you take all the pressure off of me, and everything's good.
We might say yes,
You might say yes, okay.
just on one.
Right, okay, thanks. Rich was just reminding. So we do have a policy, though, that we don't allow on our single families, we don't allow the same color siding next to one another.
Well, that's good, because then you may not also get the same roof color next to each other, just.
Exactly, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
One of the goals is to have it look like a New England village. That's what the
Indeed.
description is, and to mix up colors.
Yeah. So, you know, and just thinking about what I just said, and probably in what we're calling the patio homes, which are, you know, closer homes together, that might be more appropriate for the same color for the reasons we just talked about with the multifamily units.
Right.
Just as Rich drew it here and colored it. Yep.
I mean, I think you're trying to distinguish those units from the single family.
We are.
So that,
Yeah.
it's a reasonable approach.
And, you know, scale-wise, there's only 12 units like this out of the total of 88, so there's not that many on the property.
Any other questions?
I have a question about the design of the subdivision.
Okay, let me get that board up then, okay? Could you pass it up to me? Okay.
So the question, I realize this is probably an issue that you don't have much control over, but in close proximity to this property is the bikeway. And I know you have the walking path to the north. Is that also potentially, is there some way that you're considering that people are going to connect to the bike?
All right, so one of the proposals we have is to be able to allow our residents to connect with the commercial corridor that's immediately to the east. And then, you know, I think the bike path is further east than that, right?
Just the other side of those
Okay.
properties.
So we're proposing that we do have right here on our plan, we do have a bike path, and then on there we actually do have the rights to use for a certain width this town-owned land. Actually, there has been access here over many years for this gravel operation. So our plan is to build a path that would support pedestrians and bikes to get them down to this parking lot, and then from there, of course, they can proceed into other areas.
All right, good.
Okay. Yeah, we think that's one of the nicest things about this development is it's remote, but it's also can be connected to all the things that are now being developed along Route 10.
Is there a reason why the western entry is not fully accessible?
There is a reason. In doing a study on the geometry and the grade of Hoskins in this area, we believe that it's safer to enter the property here. And if you've ever sat here on any given morning, you would probably agree with me. But I know that it's a subject that has come up in the town engineer's remarks, and we're happy to have that discussion with the zoning folks or whoever.
Well, if the sight lines clearly can be an issue. I don't know whether they are.
Well, it's not only sightline, but I mean, the grade of this road is coming down at about 7%. And my own observations, and I'm not a traffic engineer, just my own observations are people speed down this hill. I don't have the ability to stop them from speeding. But by the time they get down here, this is a much flatter portion over here. So again, my job is to present a plan and to convince people it's the right plan. But we understand that there could be differing opinions, and we're willing to listen to those opinions. For sure, it's going to be at least emergency access.
Guys good? Anything else? All right. Someone want to make a motion to approve both application 15-30 and 15-34?
I move that applications 15-30 and 15-34, what are different, 15-30 of Gerard Brothers Corporation, owner Sunlight Construction, Inc., applicant for a site plan approval on a property located at 42 and 54 Hoskins Road, Assessor's Map H05, Block 404, Lot 005, Zone I-1, and application 1534 of Condev Associates LLC, owner Sunlight Construction Company, applicant for a site plan approved on the property located at 22 Hoskins Road, Assessors Map H05, Block 403, Lot 021, Zone 11, be approved as presented.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Is there any discussion?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No? Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Approved. Thank you. All right, next up, we have application number 15-35 of Christopher Milliard of Phase Zero Design, applicant Antonio 5 LLC, owner, for a site plan amendment on the property located at 1225-1231 Hot Meadows Street, Assessor's Map I-05, Block 403, Lot 019, Zone B2.
Hi, I'm Steve Antonio.
Hi.
We have sort of a two-pronged thing today. The first one was the site plan amendment, which we're still going to do an official proposal, but I was hoping to informally present to you folks. We went over it with Hiram during his tenure. Mike, I don't know if you've seen it yet, have you? Okay. As part of our future development, Dunkin' Donuts, we're going to raise a couple of the buildings, and Dunkin' Donuts is going to build a new building there on the site now. But we were hoping that I could get your good faith opinions, if I could take them into account before they proceed. They just wanted me to get that aspect. So we can, the other part is, well, one part's informal and one is formal, if you will. The formal part is I'd like to put a new facade to start our development. We were going to start with the corner, which Chris is here to explain it in much more technical terms. And that's where we'll start, is with this one building. The raising buildings are going to be, these three will be removed in the future. So would you like us to begin with the formal presentation as to the new parapet wall and fascia on the corner building, or the overall site plan, informally?
Why don't we start with the formal application for site plan?
By
so
all
we can
means.
Get approved, and then we can roll into the informal, so.
Thank you. Chris, do you want to do this? Or
So where's the Antonio's?
Antonio's is right here. This is Eli Lane's. There's no
Okay,
stripes
and
on it.
that's Antonio's.
Antonio's would be right here.
Oh,
And this is the Dunkin' Donuts, the existing Dunkin' Donuts drive-through you can see here on the side of the Antonio's building. And then this is Sunrise Convenience Store right there. Of course, it's the top. It's this building right here is the building we're speaking about this evening.
okay.
Ready? Great. There you go.
Hello, my name's Chris Millard from Phase Zero Design. As Steve mentioned, we're looking at the building on the northern end of Simsbury on Route 10, which is currently the home of Sunrise Convenience. Right now, the siding on that building is in, I wouldn't say rough shape, but it's dated. The client, Steve Antonio, is looking to remove the existing parapet, replace the siding and build a new parapet, and eventually we'll have some new signage as part of a separate application to go to that building. So what we're looking at here is just the aerial view of that building. You can kind of see a little bit the existing parapet that just sits on top of that roof that we would like to remove. There's an adjacent house complex which is right next door. You can kind of see that briefly in this picture, which is looking across the front yard of that house at the side facade. The building is screened pretty well, you know, from this house to the proposed building by some trees. So anything that we do there is not going to appear monstrous, or, you know, it's going to be well screened from that building. These elevations here, which I apologize, are a little tough to see. You should have them in your packets. They're basically just the existing elevations of the building. I only brought those with me in case if we need them for reference, but basically the building is pretty linear. It has one parapet height that goes around the building. Right now it's a vertical wood beadboard siding, and then it also has some painted CMU, which I believe is mainly on the back side of the building. That's correct. Right now, the Sunrise Convenience is there, and I expect them to remain in place. Right now, there's 2 other vacant tenant spaces, which I believe that's the intent at the moment, is to keep it as 3 separate tenants. As part of the exterior fenestration renovation, the new siding is planning on going over the existing wood siding. Basically, it's going to be a hardy board siding with 2 separate colors, and I do have the color palette here. Right now we're looking at the Heritage Gray and Newport Taupe, which are these 2 colors here. Those colors could potentially vary a little bit depending on the manufacturer and who has the project, but that's the color range that we're looking for at the moment. It's kind of a beige tan color. So we decided to use 2 colors, one of them that wraps the lower level of the building with the darker color, and then the parapet in a lighter color to make it feel a little lighter. The parapet is also a little taller at the Sunrise Convenience. So you can see this front corner, which this is the street elevation here. The front corner of Sunrise Convenience has a taller parapet, which also wraps around to the south side, which is this elevation. One of the things you may see in this design versus what was submitted a couple weeks ago is there was a couple design tweaks that were made within the past day or two. And those design tweaks are, this tall parapet used to continue all the way across, but we decided to pull it back and lessen it up a little bit. And also on the north side, the shorter parapet, we only wrapped it around about halfway down the side of the building as opposed to all the way towards the back. Our thought in doing so was, again, it just kind of helps break up the scale of the building. It doesn't have, a large box feeling. It only has that front facade face that gives it that street frontage.
So what we're looking at here is different than what you have before.
It is a little bit different. This is the correct. So what you can see on this south facade is we only we cut it off there, and then this is a lower parapet, and then on the back side we eliminated that. So we did eliminate this parapet. So we have just a short piece of shorter parapet, and then this front portion which is the taller parapet.
Is that, by definition, a parapet is open on at least one side, right?
Absolutely.
Is that parapet open,
Yes.
the short part?
Yes.
The reason I asked the question is because the existing parapet, which you show here,
Mm-hmm.
can be seen very easily from up the street if you're coming east.
You can see the back side of the parapet.
What are we going to see when we come east with a new?
Most likely the same thing, except it'll be a little different. With the parapet that's there now, that's a wood frame construction, and it basically sits right on the roof and is held down by cinder blocks. This parapet is going to be built into the roof system and will allow the roofing membrane to come up the back side of the parapet. So depending on the color of the roof material, that's what you'd see as a single ply EPDM roof surface.
What is
Which-
the roof material on the overhang?
This right here?
Yeah.
That's a fabric awning, which I also brought a sample of. It's basically this maroon color. Again, I'll pass it to you. It's the one that has the clip on it. That's the proposed color, which would separate the 2 siding colors, the lighter above and the darker one below. Along with the siding, obviously there's trim that goes with it. All the trim we were planning on being a solid PVC trim. All the fasteners countersunk, finished, and painted. The existing fascia boards that are on there, they're warping and a little weathered, so those are going to come off and be replaced with PVC. There's
But as you're coming east, what you see is just this flat roof, this black flat roof, right?
East.
Coming east, it comes from the west.
So you talk about as you're coming down this road,
Yes.
right? And unfortunately, I'm not sure you can say that because I believe this is a hill, right, Steve? This starts to go up a hill, so you're above the roof line almost at one point. So the backside of the parapet was planned to be a roof surface material, and right now it's black. You can almost see in these drawings here, there's cinder blocks on top of it. It has these rickety wood posts. What you would see is really just a smooth black surface. Is there any debate over or preference on roof color?
Well, my concern is when you get not too far up beyond the building,
Mm-hmm.
coming back, almost up to the intersection, you can see the backside of the existing parapet,
Right.
which is not very pretty. And it seems to me that short will be effectively 3 walls. It shouldn't be open with structure in view.
Mhm.
That's my point.
It won't be open. It's it's basically a stud wall that extends straight up, and it's going to be sheathed on both sides, and we'll have roofing membrane on the back. The structure will all be concealed within that. Most likely there'll be a kicker, which I think is in the detail. Excuse me. So this detail here represents the front face of the existing roof canopy, and it shows the fabric awning that we're putting on out front, and then it shows the parapet that we're building behind it. So what you'd be seeing from the backside is this sloped kicker, which would be covered with the roof membrane, and then you would see a portion of the metal coping also on top of that.
Is that kicker continuous or is it individual?
Right now we're planning on it being continuous. I think structurally that's the most satisfying solution. Also, depending on the roofing, it's a little easier to fabricate, I believe. We haven't worked with the structural engineer yet. We're in preliminary stages, so the extent and size of this angle could vary a little bit, but the idea is that you'll see an angle there.
So, do I understand there was a proposed parapet along this wall, eliminated it completely, so it's now...
That's correct. The thought is that this building is going to be renovated in phases. Right now, the short-term phase is to reclad the building, and eventually, there's future phases which may include replacement of windows. It may include, further renovations to the building, such as doing that parapet. Some of the parapets were reduced. Part of the reason for not building over here too is this roof on that back half is all brand new. So we're trying to avoid tearing up a brand new roof to build a parapet. So, right now the intent is not to build it, but perhaps, 10 years in the future when the roof is ready to be replaced.
The note on the plan says smooth fiber cement siding. This is not...
That's correct.
Texture or smooth?
That's one of the things that recently changed also is it's now a textured, it has that cedar board impressions to it. I don't want to say impressions because I know that's a manufacturer, right? It has the texture.
Better choice.
Yep. One other thing I wanted to mention is the fabric awning. As you can kind of see from the elevations, it basically wraps the the existing canopy that's along the side, and then ramps across the whole front of the building, and then has a short return along the north facade.
A question, these areas that are lit by the gooseneck lights, are those for future signage, or is that just a decorative item?
I would say both. There's certainly the potential to fill all of those with signage. Right now, we're not submitting a signage proposal, but the thought is whether there's signage on it or not, we would keep the panels there for a signage backer. I think aesthetically, even if there is no signage on there, we know that there's 3 tenants here, but we have 4 panels for signs. So aesthetically, we feel that just those panels alone kind of help keep the symmetry of the building or the continuity. So the thought is to keep the panels there, and however, there may only be 3 signs on those panels. Same with the sides. We also have a panel here. Most likely, if there's no signage on that panel, then the goosenecks wouldn't be installed.
Would not be?
Would not be, correct. Right.
How would you know?
Yeah, I guess right now we would commit to the junction boxes, having the electrical fixtures there. I guess I'll let you answer that one, Steve. I'm not sure how you feel on the light fixtures. I figured it would just be light fixtures if there was signage.
Sure. If you don't mind, I'll
Yeah,
just
go
do
ahead.
a couple things. First, let me address the kicker wall, because I know when you come down Eli Lane, it does not look good. That's part of what I'm trying to do is start the revolution here. As with any small businessman, my finances are limited. I'm still playing lotto, but at this point, they are limited. So the truth of the matter, just to reiterate, underscore what Chris said, is this extension here, this roof is 5 years old. It was just put in. It's a considerable cost savings for this phase. It truly is. I mean, I'm a man of my word. I've been a local businessman for years. To fulfill the dream you have in front of you, if you will. However, Matt Whitmer, who works with Chris and I, has suggested that I show you what I can accomplish and can fund in the immediate short-term future. So just to clarify, that's why that part of the parapet was pulled off. To get to the kicker wall is going to be approximately, and the structural engineer has the overruling decision on this, it's going to be about 3 feet high. Is that right? So it's a 45-degree angle coming up here, and it's covered with the black EDPM membrane. So whereas now you have these decayed pressure-treated sticks with cinder blocks, that's what really looks like not so aesthetically pleasing. This will be a continuous wall coming up. The back of the fascia or parapet will also be enclad with the EDPM, and it'll be one continuous color. So is it black? Yes. I don't know if you could put siding on the back side. Is that something that's ever done? I am somewhat naive.
Depends upon the pitch.
Okay, well, I was talking about the straight vertical aspect of it. But regardless, I don't mean to open a can of worms. This is supposed to be a formal presentation. To get to the sign package, the one sign I find somewhat variable now that we've really looked at the site is the visibility lines, and that's why we truncated the parapet on this wall, is significantly obscured by not only the 1790 house, which is the white colonial house, but also a tree that sits between the two buildings and slightly forward. You really can't even see this sign. So to answer that question about the reality of what's going to evolve, this is probably going to be pulled off, and the gooseneck lights would obviously not be installed, because I don't think it's just signage wasted at that point. These, I don't know why we wouldn't fill them, so it is my full intention to build the goosenecks in when we do this when the general contractor builds this with your blessing. We're looking for a short time frame, to be honest. That's why we're doing the formal presentation. I'd like to have this all done and tenants in it. Theoretically, I'm shooting for the end of the year. Realistically, I'm still shooting for January, February at the latest. So I'm very open to whatever input you have as far as colors or textures or anything else. We definitely want, very open to your expertise, as I have been with Chris and Matt and everybody else. I'm somewhat new to this and I'm limited in my abilities, but I am more than happy to please. So did that, in a very long-winded manner, answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. I'll give it back to Chris.
So I have one more question, I think. The pilasters,
Those are going to, go ahead.
Sure.
how much depth do they have? I mean, is it just a single board on there, or are you actually creating like a half column kind of look?
I'll kind of start by talking about these columns that are out there now. Right now, they're about a 3-inch or a 4-inch square steel column. The thought is to wrap those with an 8-inch PVC enclosure, and which will have a cap and a base to it. The pilasters on the building would basically mimic that, so it'd be an 8-inch square pilaster, again with the same cap and same base to match that. And those do follow along the front of the building, basically where the column lines are of the building now. It just kind of will accent that. And in addition to those pilasters, is we've introduced a piece of trim in the siding above, again, just to kind of help break up that long facade and scale it down a little bit.
And so there's 3 stores there, or hope that we have 3 stores.
That's correct. Right now it's 3 tenants, and I believe the way leasing has been going is we're still shooting for 3 tenants. Right now, the Sunrise Convenience takes up this space. There's a vacant space in the middle, and then there's a much larger space on the end. Are you looking for some space? I tried, Steve.
On the south elevation, towards the end there, the existing portion, the flat, low portion there,
Yep.
that white fascia, it's existing, right?
This piece here?
No, to your,
This here.
yes.
That's right. I believe it's a wood material. I can't. Yeah.
I mean, does it look good, or?
No, it's
Is it new? Is it part of that new roof, or?
it's this tan painted color, which I apologize is a small image here. I'll bring it over.
So you're
Not-
gonna paint it?
If it's not going to break the budget, would you consider covering it or replacing it with something of the same burgundy color?
We are
It's totally up to you. I'm just, thinking out loud here. How will that look?
sure. We are planning on replacing it. We're basically replacing it in kind. Right now, it's a wood trim. We'd be removing all of the wood trim and replacing it with the white PVC.
Okay, so
So-
it will be wide, but, I mean, it will stay wide, but it will be new, a new.
That's correct. Right. Yeah, so the white colors that you do see on the drawings, the renderings are correct. It is considered a white painted trim. And all the trim you see also is a PVC trim.
Good. All right, do you guys have any other comments about the application 15-35?
Let me ask you an earth-shattering question.
Uh-oh.
Did you ever consider the fact that you're gonna be next to an historic structure by the contrast in architecture is?
Well,
You
we
have on your website a job that you did for Ann Taylor,
mhm.
which put an truss A roof across the front of that, across the whole front of that building, and make the architecture more compatible with what's gonna ultimately develop with the 1790 building.
We absolutely have thought about that. In respecting to the client's budget, we
I'm not
tried.
gonna vote against you, I'm just.
Yeah, we did have gables on this roof at one point. It was pretty intense. And then we decided to simplify it a little more. Right now, the building certainly looks like it's from the 70s, from the 80s. I think what we're doing is certainly not a modern building. I think it still has some classic characteristics to it, which, with corner boards and clapboard siding, it still relates to the building next door. But it doesn't take on the gable roof style completely. So to answer your question, yes, we did think about it, and we tried to keep it, not a modern building. We didn't want to clad it with EFS.
Well, thank you. I think it's going to be a great improvement.
Thank you.
Definitely worth it. All right, does anybody have anything else for discussion, or someone want to make a motion?
I move that application
Somebody will do it.
15-35 of Christopher Mylard, Phase 0 Design applicant Antonio LLC, owner, for site plan amendment on the property located at 1225 through 1231 Hot Meadow Street, Assessors Map 105, Block 403, Lot 019, Zone B2. Be approved as presented.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. All in favor?
Yep, that's
Any
what we-
opposed? No? All right, motion approved.
Thank you.
And if you want to now speak on your informal piece, that'd be great.
Can I use your?
Yeah, you want me to put
Left
that?
my clips. I'm sorry. It's upside
Take
down,
that.
too. I think you guys also got a copy of this plan too, if I'm not mistaken.
We did, yes.
And as I mentioned, we're in our final phases in discussing with Dunkin' Donuts the feasibility of this. And part of the big picture, I'm trying to think of good words to use that are more eloquent. The North Village area, some of it's easier to just erase and rebuild. The Sunrise building with the existing tenant, we wanted to rebuild it to a much more modern and new, if you will, condition. The 1790 house, as you referenced, is a historic structure, and I enjoy that sort of architecture in Simsbury. To be frank, I don't know what the final use will be, who my final tenant will be, and I'm sort of hop-skipping over that to this area. To address this again, to just look at it briefly, these three buildings are all in horrible condition. They're essentially cinder block buildings with rubber roofs. It's just not worth it to keep them. So if we can go forward with this plan, we're going to raise them, just get rid of all three buildings and come up with a clean slate. The Dunkin' Donuts that now is part of the Antonio's Plaza has expressed a very high level of interest in building a brand new Dunkin' Donuts, which would not be exactly the same building that is in Weetag, but 95% the same exact building. That's where we're looking is if you are informally approval of this. Hiram was very into this plan. We were rolling right along, but before they expend the money for an engineer to come and finalize their plans, I understand them wanting me to run this by you. And I've been working with LADA, who I'll come in for my formal presentation with Terry Ann Hahn, to show this to you. But we wanted to see if there was any feedback or anything else I could provide at this point as far as this general site plan.
I would suggest,
Yes.
since you mentioned the ones in the southern end of town, there's a great deal of discussion about that original design and some subsequent presentations and so on. You might want to review that application and the minutes of the design review, and for example, be very careful with orange.
Is that because of Halloween? No,
Well,
I'm just kidding. That's something we've dealt with in the Antonio's Plaza. We actually didn't let them use orange, and I assume that you're following that same mindset. They seem to be very willing to work with us in the town of Simsbury for that colonial look that is our goal.
The challenge that we face often is when we're dealing with branded services and products, where the normal presentation of their proposal doesn't fit the program, and there's a lot to be learned from what was done with that building. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears on both sides.
So, are you happy with that building though, if we
I think-
reproduced
I
it,
think
or is
it's
there
fair to
further
say that
tweaking?
The building generally fits the area. I think it's looking forward to the area growing, which it already is.
Yeah.
So, to answer your question, I think it serves the purpose for the applicant and the community. How's that for a political answer?
I think it's wonderful.
So you
So-
don't like it.
You removed there, you said like 3 structures,
Correct.
smaller structures? So
They're
theo-
medium-sized.
Yeah, so it's medium-sized, good. So theoretically, you have more room there to build than a Dunkin' Donuts, right?
Correct. That's part of my approach to this is I'm trying to take it bites instead of trying to jump in where I just become overwhelmed and start flailing trying to throw an ill-fitted idea together where I just have massive development. That is something I plan to do in probably 5 years would be a realistic time horizon. This, as you know, I'm trying to do this year, the sunrise aspect. Next year, the first part, as I said, we'd hop over and raise the building, sort of get myself a clean level lot. Duncan would hopefully be after that. After that, I'd probably move back over here. However, to answer your question, you can see this area to remain is pictured here, as well as we've started to figure out the access. She didn't want it going straight through the access road. She felt it would be a high speed. There's also, we've left some connectivity to Big Y. That's one of the things the town, Hiram, had asked us to encompass in our ideas, was interconnectivity between parcels. I don't really know the Gerstens who have this front parcel, but I have a great working relationship with the Wagners who own the rear parcel. That's why we chose for the interconnectivity to go towards the rear aspect of the lot. And would I put another building up someday? I'd like to. You know, we also behind Antonio's have a building lot we've owned for 35 years we'd like to put a building up on. So long term, I would like to, but I really don't know the answer at this point. It is definitely a possibility with this much land to have a second row structure.
You
So-
see, I'm hoping that somebody will bring a Trader Joe in town, but again.
Ah, yes. That would
Probably
be
not.
nice.
I don't think I have that much square footage. I think they're a larger.
You know,
A
they're
larger
very small,
building.
actually.
Are you saying you'd like to bring? I can talk to you about that that one unit over. Start small.
Exactly. That might be a great location, sure, next to Big Y, it's perfect.
Go ahead.
So I do have a thought about the layout of this
Yes.
Dunkin' Donuts thing, and I guess my concern is I'm looking at it and thinking about the development that's taking place on that part of North Village.
Mhm.
I wonder if the building were turned, and that side parking next to the building were put behind it, and I don't know if the engineering is gonna allow this, but I would ask you to look at it. You'd have more building on the streetscape and less parking on the streetscape.
I believe that we did look at that too, and I will revisit it first and foremost. I am open to, I want this to work for everyone. I enjoy all the input that what I've learned from. The reason the building was left perpendicular to Hop Meadow Street is because the drive-through window, ideally, they don't want to, from what the why Hiram had lent us, they didn't want the stacking for the drive-in window to be visible from Route 10. So intentionally, the drive-in window is right here, and all your stacking as well as menu boards are obstructed by the building. It's something we can definitely bring back to the engineer and ask the question. Part of raising the buildings is to give ourselves a larger blank slate to be able to manipulate things. And
I
that's,
don't know what flexibility you have with sort of expanding, you've got that side parking between that and the 1792 house office parking, says reconfigure. I mean, you may have more leeway to be lateral and still have the stacking of the parking.
well, this is the main inlet and outlet. There is, Duncan did request their own in and out. And this was, in theory, it would be a loop-de-loo. You come in around the building and out. As I said, we'll look at, but turning it parallel to Route 10, I'm not sure we would be able to maintain an entrance for this building to be functional. That is definitely something I have to address because we don't want to send people through the Dunkin' Donuts queue, if you will,
Right.
to utilize the office building.
And they also may be able to do a different footprint than that long rectangle.
Well, they will
You know,
come
like
in
an
with their
elevated,
own.
say, where they, where you've got more street facade, but you still can have the, so I'd just like you to consider it.
Well, I'm sure they'd like the frontage. I'm sure their objective would be in line with yours if we
More
can
building
make
and
it
less
feasible.
parking, I think, is the-
No orange.
More building, less parking, no orange. Got it.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, so I'm not really sure what you do at the end of an informal. I guess I'll.
Thank
Okay, thank you very much. I
you
appreciate
very
your
much.
time.
Yep. All right, finish up here. Any correspondence, announcements, anything from you guys? Nope. Approval of meeting minutes from July 6th, 2015, July 27th, 2015, and September 21st, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, all three meeting minutes are approved. Anything else? We can make a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.